I really like Kathy Harrington. I'm sorry she's leaving. I really like her
personal, self-deprecating sense of humor. It's an endearing quality, I think.
I'm preaching.
Okay. What's your topic? Different than the Octa Wisdom of last year. Have you given the sermon before on evil? Or is it
Actually, I did, but I'm way rewriting it. Before COVID, and I was going to give it here, and then COVID came. And
We have some of that, but not as much as we used to. That's here.
I can see an argument against having one of these things. You experience more, you just experience what's happening rather than looking there and saying what's next and reading it.
What should I be looking for you?
You'll make it on the 30th.
Well, I can.
Maybe we should go to the event at the Asheville Brewery.
Yeah.
There's a speaker,
Mm-hmm.
the Dems of North Asheville, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what's the timing on that?
I'll send out an email.
I read it, but I didn't see the specific time. I can't remember.
I think it was right about the time. 6 o'clock or something.
Okay.
Thank you.
are you? Good. I hope she's coming with Grandpa. Yeah, my dad's at our house, but I had to come an hour early, so we'll see. It's good to see you, kids. Good morning, Asheville. Good morning. Thank you for rolling out of bed instead of gently being lulled back to sleep by the sound of soft rain falling. We are glad you're here, congregant or visitor. My name is Adam Griffith, and I'm on the board here, and I'm proud to also serve as a worship associate. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, however you identify, you are welcome in our faith community. If you are visiting in the sanctuary, welcome. If you are visiting online, we invite you to introduce yourself and tell us from where you are watching. We're glad you're here also. We're grateful today for our music director, Les Downs, and our AV Tech coordinator, Simon Jacobs. Now let us prepare for worship with today's centering music.
Thank you, Les. That was beautiful. That's Mia's favorite song. I'm Reverend Kathy Harrington, and I'm serving as the interim minister of this congregation and just about to finish up. It's really great to see you all here this morning on this rainy day, this Memorial Day weekend. I chose opening words from Reverend Calvin Dame. We come into one another's presence seeking some part of ourselves, knowing that we do not live alone, knowing that we cannot fully live if we are for ourselves alone. We come as ordinary people, each with strengths and each with weaknesses, aware of our shortcomings. Our lives set before us as many tasks, we are not always equal to them. And yet, here we are, not always perfect, not always wise, but always human, gloriously and miraculously alive and breathing, and wondrously and mysteriously human. While Adam lights our chalice, I'll give us a slight blessing for our hour together. May our time together renew our hope. May the stories we share refresh our courage. May the songs we sing lift our spirits. May the words we speak invigorate us. May the touch of the hands and the sounds of the laughter, the sight of faces new and familiar, restore us in faith. May it be so. Please join me in singing hymn number 128, Rise in Body or Spirit, for all that is our life.
So I have a children's story this morning, and if anybody wants to come down and sit with me, you're more than welcome to. There's only a little bit of pressure. Just a mother-in-law suggestion. Thank you, Britt. I like your shirt too. All right. Well, this morning's story is called The Hugging Tree. Maybe some of you, raise your hand if you've hugged a tree before. Yeah, we're tree huggers, aren't we? It's what we do. Well, this is a cool story about a tree that needs a hug. Yeah. On a bleak and lonely rock by a vast and mighty sea grew a lonely little tree where no tree should ever be. How she got there, no one knew. She sprouted stems and little leaves, as any tiny seed will do. There's hardly any dirt for me, no forest breeze, no birds, no bees. But I will do the best I can to make this rock my home. Her tiny roots pushed night and day, and bit by bit the rock gave way. A smidge, an inch, a foot, then 2. She grew and grew and grew and grew. She grew and grew and grew and grew. The ocean hugged the rocky shore. I like you near me, little tree. Let's keep each other company. Soft gold sunbeams kissed her crown, warm as honey pouring down. At night she raised her branches high to greet the moon up in the sky. I wax and wane, I ebb and flow, I cycle through from full to thin, and when I'm done, I start again. That's how life is, you know. One summer noon, a pair of loons landed on her canopy, a pretty tree, a sparkling sea. Shall we make this place our home and raise our baby chicks right here? The little tree warmed up with pride. She spread her branches high and wide. I'll be your home, she replied. And can you tell me if you've seen the forest where my family grew? We've built our nest in trees like you, quite far from here. And so you blew, many nights and many days. You flew on wind, just like we do. They built their nest, they laid their eggs, and soon 2 baby chicks were born. Summer passed, autumn too. The little tree turned red and gold. Then winter came with howling winds and cutting cold that broke her boughs. Snap, crack. Can you hear the wind? The loons flew south. The sea all ice. The rock and snow. The moon was lost in thunder clouds. Mighty cliff, hold me tight. Don't let me blow away. Little tree, with all my might, I'll hold you close night and day. Storms will come and storms will go. At last the sun melted the snow. But now the tree could not grow. The storm had torn her roots. The moon gazed down and softly said, sometimes we lose our way, but with some help we start again. That's how life is, you know. And soon a boy came running by, skipping stones into the sea. When he saw the little tree, he stopped and stared. He touched the tiny leaves. He felt the ragged roots. He shook his head and said, I can bring just what you need. I can help you, little tree. A tree can't hug a boy. It has no hands or arms, but it can hug you with its heart. And that is just as deep and warm. Every day the boy came back carrying a full backpack. From the pack he took a tin and poured out rich brown earth. He packed the roots and tucked them in. He planted flowers round the tree and made a path for all to see. Now everyone will know that even on a granite cliff, a little tree can grow. And then he went to sleep and dreamed the things that boys dream of. Now every day new people stop to rest beneath the little tree and dream the things we all dream of, to love, to share, to give, to dare, to grow just where we are. And to this very day they come. For on a splendid sunny rock, by a warm and bright blue sea, a great big hugging tree grows just where she was meant to be. So all the tree needed was a hug. How many of you have a favorite tree? Does anyone want to tell me where their favorite tree is? River Place in Austin, Texas. Oh, thank you. Where's your favorite tree? My house. Do you know what kind of tree it is? Yeah, big tree. Do you hug it? Mm-hmm. You could try. Can you imagine a tree so big? The grandmother tree and the grandfather tree in West Asheville. Do any of you have a favorite tree? Where's your tree? At your house. Nice. Where's your tree? Do you have a favorite tree, Mia? Okay. Thank you all so much for joining me. Okay? Thanks, Brett. Yeah.
What a great story. Thank you, Adam. And so now, children and youth, we invite you to religious exploration. You'll be sung out of the sanctuary and then meet your group leaders in the foyer or Sandburg Hall and go to your classes together. Look for the adults holding the sign with your grade to find your group. Parents, if you're visiting today, please escort your children to their class to meet the group leaders and find out where to pick up your child after worship. So now let us sing you out. Such a sweet song. In the center of our service and in the center of our lives, let us pause to honor the silences of the world. Let's open our hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain and the soft, gentle coming of love. On this Memorial Day weekend, I would like to offer a prayer before we share a moment of silence. This is by Reverend Wayne Arneson. Spirit of life, into this season of Memorial Day, surrounded by such a cloud of witnesses, we remember, first of all, the women and men who are currently serving in the armed forces, and we pray for their safe return. We also acknowledge that there are women and men who will not return, as we grieve their passing in the daily paper. We pause to honor their service and their sacrifice. We also pause this hour to give thanks for all the women and men who have served in the nation's armed forces. Those who have not served cannot fully imagine the experience of war, but we do know war's aftermath and the toll that it can take on the human heart. This day remembers and acknowledges loss, and we do remember those whom we have loved and lost. We hold their names and faces in our mind's eye. We recall the gifts they gave to us through the strength of their being, the depth of their love, the courage of their dying, and the fullness of their living. In the holy quiet of this hour, their names surround us, and they live with us in blessed memory. May we remain together in silence as a tribute to all that they have meant to us. Amen. And now it's time for honoring our joys and our sorrows with a candle lighting ritual. If you're in the sanctuary, you feel free to come forward and light a candle of memory or hope. And if you're online, I will light 2 candles for you. And you can write in the chat box as well a joy or sorrow that you would like to share. We light 2 candles for those online watching, and a candle for all of the joys and the sorrows that are left unspoken in our hearts.
I'm listening, I am listening. Spirit, speak to me. I'm listening, I am listening. Spirit, speak to me. My ears are wide open, my eyes are now open to see what I may be. I'm listening, I am listening. Spirit, speak to me. I'm listening, I am listening. In this moment of Spirit speaks through me. I can hear the voices of all my kind. I'm listening, singing. I am listening, the sweet spirit howling into the wind. My ears are wide open, oh, the joy. My eyes are wide open, oh, the love. To see and to hear for you and me. Oh, I'm listening. In this moment of silence, I am listening. I hear Spirit speak through me.
So the children's message of resilience, I think, is a wonderful springboard. Resilience is most commonly defined as the ability to bounce back from a shock to the system. It's a springboard to talk about the swirling storm of shocks to the system right now. Political systems, a sudden GOP majority in the House in North Carolina. A systemic shock to personal reproductive rights in North Carolina, bans on abortion. Systemic shocks to financial systems with rising interest rates and stubborn inflation. Systemic shocks to our planet, to our religious institutions, right? COVID was hard. And to our mental health, right? I think of Tina Turner and what she's been through. So what tendencies, what abilities, and characteristics exist within social structures and organisms giving them the ability to withstand these shocks, to bounce back? How could that tree on the cliff survive the swirling storm? Canadian ecologist C.S. Holling is generally credited as the academic father of ecological resilience. He noted some organisms and some groups have the ability to return to a previously stable state, while others do not. And yet others return to a different stable state. The seed that Holling planted in 1973 spread to other academic disciplines. Soon everyone was studying community resilience, psychological resilience, social resilience, and organizational resilience. Organizational resilience is a fascinating field of study. Many academics, for-profit corporations, and consultants have a laundry list of admirable characteristics and catchy phrases. I read a lot of these. And I can tell you the great news. Our faith community right here already has a lot of these characteristics. Characteristics like preparedness. So kudos on those on the transition team and the search committee. A resilient organization is adaptable. Our staff at UUCA exemplifies adaptability with all of the different ways that they have coped over the last couple of years. So big tip of the cap to our staff here. They're amazing. Other characteristics include being collaborative, trustworthy, and responsible. But my favorite by far is having a positive outlook. I'm extremely excited about our future here at UUCA. My outlook is always more positive when I go home from a service, and my mental health improves to boot. I come here because we are a resilient community and an organization that makes me more resilient. I get bread for my journey when I come through these doors. So stick around, and let's see where we can all go together.
Thank you, Adam. So this sermon is called Bread for the Journey, and it has an emphasis on adapting to change, which is that one great form of resilience is adaptation. One thing we can count on in life is that change is going to happen. Every well-lived life involves creative adaptation as inevitable changes bring the challenges. And bread has been a metaphor for life since antiquity. Breaking bread together comes from the root words companion, come, and pan, which is bread, companionship. Both are metaphorically and spiritually highly recommended for increasing your capacity for creativity in the face of change and enhancing your life while at the same time growing your soul. I did my internship in Austin, Texas 23 years ago at First UU. I love their statement of purpose, which was, our church is a journey, not a destination. On this journey, we covenant to provide and sustain an environment for ourselves and for our children that encourages spiritual freedom, friendship, mutual support, acceptance, and respect for all creation. Some of you know Sandburg Hall is named after Carl Sandburg. He once wrote in this church's newsletter, "You can't go tramping around from church to church and build up anything. Who would want to go on a picnic all the time and eat out of other people's baskets?" He had a way with words. You've got to feel the importance of your own individual participation in this church's life. And I would say there's no greater investment you can make on your life journey than to participate wholeheartedly in this beloved community. Because I believe this beloved community is just that, bread for the journey. Here's a little story from World War II that I think is really powerful. As World War II was drawing to a close, the Allied armies gathered up many hungry orphans. They were placed in camps where they were well fed, and despite the excellent care, they couldn't sleep. They were nervous and afraid. Finally, a psychologist figured it out, and he gave each child a piece of bread to hold in their hand while they slept. This piece of bread, just to be held, was not eaten, and the children went to bed knowing instinctively that they would have something to eat the next day. Few of us have ever known this kind of hunger physically, but I know that we all hunger for wholeness and community and peace and love and companionship. UU Asheville is the wonder bread of life that you can count on and you can hold in your heart every night when you go to sleep. I think about my grandmother's life and how much change occurred in her life. She was born in the late 1800s and was almost 100 when she died. You think about that changes. And I'm just thinking, when I look at Facebook and they post all these funny pictures of things like rotary phones and a set of jacks, and they say, if you know what this is, you might be old. And it's hard to imagine a time when women were not allowed to vote or have their own checking account. Sometimes changes aren't welcome, though, right? Sometimes changes are hard. Like the time when I was 12, just about the time my wonderfully straight hair suddenly became frizzy and curly. The style in the 60s, if you remember, was long and straight. And my hair was like, I earned the title frizzy-headed giant, and I won't tell you who said that. My sibling, though. Yeah, my parents had wavy hair, and I remember thinking that it was really irresponsible of them to have children. So I ironed it, straightened it, and stayed home from school when it rained. And now every day when I look in the mirror, I see changes I don't like. I especially related to Nora Ephron's book. I feel bad about my neck. But at least it helped me laugh at the things that I cannot change. Washington Irving said, there is a certain relief in change, even though it could be from bad to worse. He said, as I have found in traveling in a stagecoach, that it is often a comfort to shift one's position and be bruised in a new place. How do we navigate difficult changes with grace and courage? The challenges and the changes of the last 3 years affected us on multiple levels, individually, as a community, as a society, as a church. And how we respond to that change makes all the difference, and I just think you should be very proud of how this congregation has responded to change. You have a wonderful future with your wonderful new minister coming in August. When I did research for a sermon about change years ago, I ran across that book, Who Moved My Cheese, by the author of The 1 Minute Manager. Yeah, it was the cheese being a metaphor for continued employment, I guess. This 97-page book was on the New York bestseller list, New York Times bestseller list for over 5 years after its publication in 1998. And now it's an animated movie called Of Mice and Zen. So, but I found it amazing that that it was on the bestseller list, because the reviews I read said it offered nothing innovative. And one reviewer used words such as insipid and banal to describe this cheesy new self-help book. And you know, as some of you, who's read this book? Oh my gosh, you all know then. Many of you know. It's about 4 little beings, 2 mice and 2 little people. The 2 little people were Hem and Haw, and the 2 little mice were Sniff and Scurry. And they lived in a maze, and their whole life was to search for cheese. That's what their meaning was. And for little people, cheese is spelled with a capital C. And the little people were more complex intelligently than the mice, and the cheese took on the meaning of security and power and contentment. And the mice were just simple, and they followed their natural instincts, which can be extremely useful when it comes to navigating life. Instinct. So they were all wearing jogging suits and running shoes. And the maze they lived in consisted of labyrinth of corridors and chambers. But the maze, as in life, had its shares of dark corners and dead ends. And getting lost was common. So as the story goes, Hem and Haw and Sniff and Scurry had found lots of cheese, and it was so great that they could just eat until their fill. But eventually the cheese ran out. And so Hem and Haw, they said, "Who moved my cheese?" They were angry, they were stunned, they screamed, "It's not fair," while Sniff and Scurry went off to find more cheese. So the little people were like, I don't deserve this. I'm entitled to this cheese. Who moved the cheese? I earned this cheese. So what eventually happened was they got it, they overcame their fear, and they went out looking for cheese. So the basic message of this book is change is inevitable. Don't waste too much time crying over spilt milk. Get busy and resist change. Lao Tzu said, resisting change is like holding your breath. It will persist. If you persist, you will die. So reading this cheese fable was tedious, but my mind drifted back to a time which I realized was well over 50 years ago. That was a shock. I built a tea maze for my biology class, and I had a little hamster that I used for my science experiment. And the tea maze had 3 sides to it, and I put flags on either end. Actually, remember those little bows with clip-on bows that we used to wear? I used clip-on bows on either end, and so that the hamster would eventually learn where the treat was, which is the same color. So I could move it around, and she would always find the right color. But what happened was, she was fat and overfed, and so she really didn't care about treats. So I thought, oh, this is crazy. I built this maze, and it was, my brother and I, he helped me, we figured out that we needed a better lure than food. So we have these mailing tubes, these 2 long mailing tubes that we put on the end of the maze of the tea, so that if she found the right color, she could escape. And that really worked. So we taught her the color red was the way to freedom. So I let her run around for a while so she could have a little experience of freedom before I put her back in a cage. And she ate a few holes in the carpet, which my mother wasn't really happy about. But it helped her obesity problem a little bit. So there was a little mishap with I got an A on my project, and Odessa was a really sweet pet, but this is much more interesting than the cheese story, I think. She lived in a small cage equipped with a tiny little wheel, that she could run on, except it was really squeaky. And so I had it in my room, and I couldn't sleep at night because she was nocturnal or something. She was up all night. And so I solved the problem by putting the cage under the vanity in the bathroom that I shared with my big sister. And it was perfect. So I put it in there. I was the youngest of 4. And my folks had 4 teenagers in the house. Nora Ephron says, when your children are teenagers, it's important to get a dog so that someone in the house is happy to see you. So my parents did their best, 4 of us. It was really hard. We were expensive. And so we had to adapt to change. They had to adapt to change. So my sister and I were wearing stockings to school. They didn't have pantyhose back then. So we were wearing stockings. And so my dad was going broke. And he said, because, they run. They don't last long. So he decided that the only way to survive 4 teenagers in the house was to put us on a clothing allowance. And back then, we got $25 a month. And so that included stockings. So we lived in a 5-bedroom, 3.5 bath, 3-story, 100-year-old house. And there were 4 bedrooms upstairs, and that was kids' country. Daddy called it kids' country, and he wouldn't let Mommy go up there. Well, it was to save her, her sanity. So it was his last valiant effort to teach his spoiled children responsibility. And he would inspect our rooms. And if we didn't pass the inspection, we were grounded. So we were always scrambling on that morning of the inspection. So that one night after I had put Odessa, I experimented putting her in the bathroom. Susan had been out late, and she came home, and she undressed in the bathroom, put her pajamas on, and as teenagers are off to do, she just left her clothes on the floor in front of Odessa's cage. You may know what happened next. So Susan had just gone to the mall and spent some of her allowance on a panty girdle. Some of you who are too young to know what that is. But it was a great invention. And so it was an unfortunate decision for Susan to leave her clothes there because Odessa spent the entire night pulling that panty girdle into her cage, gnawing its elastic fibers until, voila, it blossomed into the most excellent, spongy plush nest. What a rodent, right? So the next morning when Susan woke up and went into the bathroom to discover her panty girdle in shreds, that was likely a third of her whole allowance, she yelled, "You owe me a girdle." And I said, "I do not." And so there was this fight going on upstairs, and my mother was downstairs. The house had 2 sets of stairs, so the kitchen was right at the base of our bathroom, at the end of the steps. Mommy was laughing hysterically. So honestly, I have to tell you that was one of the rare times that the judgment was in my favor. And Susan and I very quickly adapted to the situation by buying several pairs of knee socks, which went great with our wool skirts. So anyway, yeah, so that's the story. I don't know what the lesson is except the... That's why I didn't title this "Who Ate My Girdle," right? Because nobody would understand. So anyway, Odessa enjoyed the spoils of the panty girdle because, you know, the immortal nature of spandex, right? So, okay, so now I'm going to get serious a minute. We have just a few more minutes. One of the most life-saving messages that I ever received was from a Zen Buddhist named Bernie Glassman, who wrote a book called Instructions to the Cook. He wrote, "Your faults are your best ingredients." And when we recognize that, we can make a delicious meal. We can get a new perspective. Glassman suggests that using care with our faults, like when one uses care with chili peppers when you're cooking, that our faults contain a tremendous amount of energy, and they can be used in a destructive or a constructive way. Anger, he says, can be turned into determination. With determination, everything's possible. Resilience. And so, with the ingredients of the supreme meal, which Glassman says is spirituality, study and learning, livelihood, social action, and change, and then add relationship and community. And he says, what are the ingredients of a supreme meal? Look around you. What is right in front of you? These are your ingredients, what we have to work with right now. And he also says, too much of any ingredient isn't good, as any cook knows. Too much Zen can spoil the soup. So change is inevitable. Learn to be resilient. Take an inventory of the remarkable ingredients all around you in this church community. God, it's gorgeous, isn't it? I mean, it's such a wonderful place to be. Beautiful families and children and youth, teens, and our very old young adults. Our mature adults, our wise elders. This building comes alive on Sunday morning when you are all together. It is the supreme meal, like the loaves and fishes that can feed the multitudes. I want to close with a story because it's a great story. Mortimer Arias, a Methodist bishop in Bolivia, was visiting a congregation in a poor part of the city where people were starving. On Sunday morning, he presided at the communion table, and the congregation was singing a joyful hymn, and the table was spread with the embroidered cloth, bread, and a chalice. And just as the hymn was ending, a small boy came running, and he was dirty and tattered, and he raced to the center aisle, up the center aisle to the communion table and grabbed the bread and started eating it. And the bishop said, "What are you doing?" And the child stopped eating and looked at the bishop with a face full of joy. "They told me there was bread in this church." And so may there always be an abundance of bread in this church. That is my prayer, my hope for you. Amen. Please rise in body or spirit and sing hymn number 331, "Life is the Greatest Gift."
Kathy, thank you for enriching the white flour in our Wonder Bread here. It was really whole grain, okay. Just think, if you had stayed in bed, you wouldn't have heard about Wonder Bread and panty girdles. It's wonderful to see some visitors out there this morning. This is typical Sunday here, just like most churches probably. So if you'd like to we invite you to stand. If you'd like to introduce yourself, you can. There's no pressure. A microphone will come to you if you do want to introduce yourself and tell us from where you're visiting.
I'm Penny Wallen-Creel from Springfield, Illinois. My daughter lives here in Asheville. Well, she's actually in Weaverville, but I'm going to put in a plug here as well. She's one of the actors in the Immediate Theater Project. It's The Revolutionists. So if you haven't seen it, you have one more weekend to do that. But anyway, I bring greetings to you from the Abraham Lincoln Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Springfield.
Welcome.
And I'm Martha Plogue, and I used to live in Springfield. I now live in Deerfield, Illinois, and I bring greetings from the North Shore Unitarian Church.
Welcome.
My name is Steve Lowe, and I am a member of the church, and I haven't been here in 3.5 years, so this is my coming out in the rain. And I brought my good friends, my twin good friends from North Dakota and from New Jersey, Joe and John DeMasi, and they're here with me today.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is John DeMasi. I bring greetings from Dorothea Dix Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Bordentown, New Jersey. That's the congregation that I attend.
Welcome.
And it's great to be here. And we got Steve to come finally after 3 years.
Good job.
He's back. Hey. Hello, and my name is Joseph. Joe, Grandpa Joe, Uncle Joe, as my wife says, hey, you, take out the garbage. But anyway, it's good to see you guys, and I bring you greetings from the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Fargo-Moorhead in North Dakota/Minnesota. Although I'm originally from New York City, but I'm a transplant. Like they say, if you're going to move someplace cold, do it for love. Although, however, today in Fargo, North Dakota, it's 83 degrees. How about that?
Wow.
So, I know I'm destroying your stereotype.
Welcome. Clicking right there.
Good morning. My name is Janet. I moved here 4 years ago from Buffalo, New York.
There you go.
And I am still looking for a church. I was raised Methodist/Presbyterian, so I am glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome.
My name's Doug Blessington. My family couldn't be here with me today, but we moved back here about 9 months ago, and I went to church here several times about 20 or so years ago. So it's good to be back here and see the changes, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm Gordon Griffith, and I call him son.
Hi, Dad. Well, thank you all. Do you want? Yeah, okay, yeah. Here we go.
Well, being that it's Memorial Day, I just wanted to say that Norris is named after his uncle Norris, who died shortly after he signed up in the war and got a Purple Heart. So anyway, that's who Norris was named after, and that's special, and it's Memorial Day.
Thank you. Wonderful to have so many visitors here. Please come back. Our announcements run as slides at the beginning of the service. If you missed them, just refer to Thursday's weekly e-news as everything is described there. If you don't receive the e-news, ask an usher how to sign you up. Our community plate recipient this month is Pro-Choice North Carolina. You can donate by check, but be sure today and write community plate in the memo line. You can also donate online. Don't forget, our congregational meeting is next Sunday after the service. There will be a vote to adopt the 8th principle. Please join us. Today's offering will now be collected and gratefully received. If this is your first time here, please let the collection plate pass you by if you wish. This service is our gift to you, and your presence is your gift to us.
for the gifts of your time, talent, presence, and treasure. We are grateful. Thank you all for enduring this girdle story. I would have felt empty if I hadn't been able to at least share that story with you. I kind of ran out of stories, so that was okay. The one and only. So the closing words I've chosen are by Andrew Pakula. There are miles behind you and many, many more ahead. As you journey toward wholeness, may all that is good and true guide your way, and may the joy of love lighten your step, and the miracle of life always be in your sight. And so now we get to stand up together as you wish, if you are able, and sing our closing song, Longtime Son, which is a blessing in itself.